Hi, everyone. Oh, hold on. Hi, everyone. It's Janet Majors. Welcome back to Series 3 of our one-on-one conversations with Harness You. Oh, man, today I have a really special person. But before I get into that, Harness You is all about trying to provide the tools for a rapidly changing economy. And, I've brought together a bunch of people that I know and I work with that inspire me and just make me feel better about everything. And I'm sharing those folks with you. And today we have Ledi Imeraj, who's just, if a woman could walk on water, it's Ledi. Ledi, just to give you a background, she's a 20-year tech executive who made the decision to pivot into well-being. And I met Ledi a while back, my first week at another job. And she was speaking at a WeWork panel, and she inspired me then, and she continues to inspire me now. So I just want to share her knowledge with you. So Ledi, my dear, give us
Hi,
a little
Janet.
background on your tech experience.
Oh, of course. Thank you. By the way, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's an honor to be talking with you. I'm very proud of the decision that you made to start your company, and I know that at the center of it, it's your heart and your soul, and especially your dedication to empowering people and also to influence a lot more empathy and kindness in the world. So thank you for doing that, and I'm really proud that you decided to do that journey. I'm very thankful.
Well, you were part of that inspiration, and now I'm like getting all verklempt here. So it's supposed to be interviewing you, not the other way around.
Well, tears, especially in the days we live right now, are completely okay. And both you and I, we're gonna let them through. We're gonna let them go through.
This is gonna be an amazing conversation. I can't wait till it goes. So you start with your background, and then we'll let the fun begin. Okay?
Sounds amazing. All right. A little bit about myself. I am originally from Albania, and I came to the United States in 1998 with a big dream. To open a path for myself to be successful. I've been passionate about technology for a very long time, and I have a undergrad degree in computer science and math, and master's degree in computer science here in the US. And I started an amazing journey here in Silicon Valley as a product manager with Siebel Systems, which later got acquired by Oracle. So I've been in CRM industry for 20 years. From Siebel, I went to Oracle, and from Oracle, I had the amazing luck to be hired by Salesforce. I had a really long journey at Salesforce as a sales engineer, moved into sales, and later on, I came back at Salesforce as an executive, as a VP of sales. Running a team across the US for the platform at Salesforce. In between, I've also been very passionate about startups and creativity, and I call myself to be a Renaissance woman. So I like to do different things, which gives me a much broader perspective on what's going on, as well as it really stimulates my mind and my creativity. And so I've worked with a lot of startups as well, helping them with their sales strategy and go-to-market strategy, etc., and product management as well.
Yes, and I can speak to her value in that equation. Well, what was it about this juggle? Because, you were managing not only work, but you were managing motherhood as well.
Yes.
What was it about this juggling act that led you into the healing arts?
It's very, very interesting. I've been, the balancing motherhood and balancing a career as a woman and balancing a relationship, balancing taking care of family. Those are all things that we have to, we have to think through and we have to manage when we are, especially in high tech, in a fast-paced environment like Silicon Valley.
Yes.
I've been very, very lucky to have really good managers throughout, throughout my career, who understood what I had to offer, but also offered me the flexibility to, to manage the other areas of my life while I was accountable and while I was delivering results. My healing journey started actually when I moved into sales. Like the really deep healing journey started when I moved into sales in 2008. Until then, I had been using mostly my scientific brain because I was a product manager, I was a sales engineer, and so I was solving problems, and that was a very comfortable place for me to solve problems for our customers, and to talk about technology, to talk about all the amazing things they could do with technology and improvements and et cetera, et cetera. However, when I moved into sales, proper sales and owning a number and having to build relationships, that really, really had me pause, and also made me start to take stock of my own values and my own emotional state. When you're in sales, you have to build very genuine relationships. I've always been about building genuine relationships, but when you're talking to about 10 people a day, your walls are going to completely drop. You're either going to build bigger walls, or you're going to have to drop those walls, depending on the type of relationships you want to build.
Yeah. Takes a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, it takes a lot. And so my journey started right there. I had to take stock of what my values are when I moved into sales. And I said, I want to sell with integrity. Mm-hmm. I want to look at my customers 10 years from now. I want to be able to look at them in the eye, and I want them to tell me that, hey, Ledi, thank you. You made us successful, when you're working with us. And so in order to sell with integrity, you definitely have to build genuine relationships.
Well, and to build that in a 30-day life cycle too, because every salesperson, you live and die by your numbers on a 30-day cycle. So, it is a juggling act of how do you build those relationships for the long haul, but meet your numbers every 30 days. And I totally get it.
And you always have to go back to your values. And so when you really look deep into yourself and you understand those emotional triggers, and you understand who you are and what you stand for, and then you make that decision to stick to those values, that's when you start to have a very healthy career as a salesperson, at least, from my experience. And from then on, after I did that deep search into my soul, my sales career took off, because every single thing that I did in sales, I never let go my values. And I always had my values as part of the fundamentals of how I build relationships with my customers. And so that was an incredible achievement in terms of healing myself, because I had to deal with rejection. I had to deal with my ego. I had to leave the ego at the door. Mm-hmm. I love to tell people what to do before then. And so I had to stop and listen. And those were all qualities that I had to develop, and they were very hard, but they're very healing when you actually act on them, and you actually stop and listen. You listen to yourself, and then as a result, you listen to your clients and your customers, and you build those amazing relationships with them that are the foundation of a successful business.
Well, and not only that, but in all transparency, Ledi and I were talking as I was transitioning from my old job to Harness You, and I was at odds with my values, because I was, my CEO had a different thought process of how to do stuff, and you really do get down to that point. It's like, no, I can't do this anymore. and
Yeah.
and knowing when that moment is and just saying, enough. And that was my catalyzing moment. What was your catalyzing moment to say enough?
um, I think my catalyzing moment was when my body started to fall apart.
Yeah, I know that one well. You're talking to an old rock. I know about bodies falling apart.
Exactly. I was and I realized in the past I was very active. I ran a marathon, I ran a half marathon, I ski a lot, I rollerblade a lot, and and I had an
Don't forget
injury.
the ninja motorcycling.
That's true. That's true.
This woman owns a Bugatti, for God's sake.
Yeah. Got to stay true to myself, right?
Yep.
And so when I moved into running a sales team, I was a VP of sales at Salesforce. I had a lot on my plate. I was running a team across the United States. I owned a large business. I was responsible for the mid-market revenue of the platform products across the United States for Salesforce. I had I call a ninja team. I had a SWAT team that was focused on having really creative and sophisticated conversations with CIOs and CEOs about digital transformation, which is things that I was very passionate about. And during that process, I was commuting from Cupertino to San Francisco about 3 hours a day. I was traveling across the U.S. I was working very, very long hours in the office, and yes, I'm not proud to say that I was actually staying awake for maybe 24 hours and 48 hours sometimes.
Been there, done that.
Right. Yes, it comes all from passion. I mean, I was very passionate about the work that I was doing, and also taking care of my team. I was spending a lot of time on one-on-ones, talking with my team, and of course I was taking care of my son here at home, and also I was trying to start a relationship. So you can imagine how much I had on the table, on the plate.
Not a big one.
Right. And during that process, I stopped exercising. I started to skip meals, and I started to actually not get enough sleep. Yeah. I'm looking at all the records from the Fitbit that I was wearing, and probably I was averaging anywhere between 3 to 4 hours of sleep in about a year, 2 years time frame, and that is absolutely unhealthy. And with that, of course, the stresses of meeting the number and building a new team, and, the intensity of being in a sales environment, usually that hasn't been an issue for me. But I think because I wasn't taking care of myself as well, actually my body started to fall apart, literally. And there was a moment where I was in severe chronic pain on my entire right side of the body. And with that came anxiety, and with that came, the emotional state. And so there was a moment when a friend of mine, were talking on the phone, and she was the one who just said, "Ledi, you have to stop."
A good friend.
Yes, she is. Yes, Anila, thank you. Yes, she's an amazing friend. And so I decided to stop. I went and saw a doctor. I took medical leave, and it was very, very hard for me to actually accept that my body was not functioning. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And believe me, I've been through a lot of tough things.
No.
That was my breaking point. My body was hurting. I was in pain. It was chronic pain. I didn't know when it was going to go away, and if it was going to go away. And then fear and anxiety kicks in because I just didn't have any visibility into what my future would look like. How am I going to provide for my child?
Yep.
Right? I wasn't worried about myself. I always thought I would be able to handle the pain and, and deal through it. But with that much pain, you can't have a high paying, high responsibility job in order to provide for your family in Silicon Valley. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
I think
yes.
there's going to be a lot of people, as you're talking about this, that can relate to realizing, what you're being asked of is to perform at a very high level, and if we don't take care of ourselves, we do pay the price,
We
and
do.
it comes out in a lot of different ways, and we all know what they are. Some productive, some very destructive, but that must have taken a lot of courage just to say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I know when I started this business, I was like, holy crap, I don't know what I'm doing. Will I have a career when I come out of this? Blah, blah, blah. And yet there's something about when you really touch base with your insides. And you and I have had many of these conversations. We know it's your body is talking to you. Your soul is talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard when you're running 150 miles an hour to say, I hear you. And to get off of that roller coaster that we call a career and say, I'm taking a pause. And so
Yes.
I just applaud you for your courage, because it's not easy. And, you wonder if you're committing career suicide. I totally get it. But look where you are, girl. You are. And tell me how that journey went for you, because I have a feeling there's a lot of other people that are probably right at that apex moment where you were. And especially
Yes.
now, when we've all been given a pause, whether we want it or not, to really reflect on it. So some of the things that you can share of that journey.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm actually, part of my mission is to empower everyone. And I think you and I have similar why as individuals. And so I've, I share a lot of this as much as possible so that people can relate. First of all, women that are looking up to us, when they see that VP of sales title, women and men, they think that we're invisible, we're human. And I share because that needs to be seen. Vulnerability is something that is very important, especially in these days. The journey wasn't easy. The first step was just deciding to stop because the body needed rest. And then the second step was to actually process in my mind the emotions of what I was dealing with. Mm-hmm. And to also say stop to my brain. So I stopped physically, and then there was a moment when all of a sudden I realized that actually pain is a gift. And it was through a meditation that I was doing. And when I realized that pain is a gift, I had this image in my head where I felt like pain was like that good friend. It was just like, okay, you really need to listen. Your soul has a different purpose. And I was just like pushing pain away and saying, get out of it. I have my own plans. I'm doing really well out here. I'm so successful. I'm loving what I'm doing. And yes, it had its own meaning, but pain is actually, it was calling me towards something
it's telling you to listen,
that was even more meaningful for me. And so I had to listen. And only at the moment where I made peace with pain, I was able to then start to heal, and start the healing journey. Mm-hmm. And during that process, I got a lot of calls from recruiters that had openings in high level executive roles, and I was very tempted to follow up. But every time I talked with a recruiter, something deep in my heart was saying, okay, like, it's just, I wasn't being excited about it. And so what I did was I sat down, I said, okay, I really need to write down what is that's really important for me right now, where I'm at.
That stuff.
And so I had to reevaluate what was important to me. And I came up with, I think, about 4 or 5 goals. And one of them was, I want to be in an environment where I feel healthy. I want to be in an environment where people around me are focused on health and are focused on treating people with kindness and compassion. Mm-hmm. The third one was, I wanted to be moving all the time. I was very sedentary in my other job. And as a result, I wasn't moving at all. And so I want to be constantly moving so that my body can stay healthy. I want to work out I want to see the sun. I want to have flexibility. And I also want to work with an office where I have big, huge windows instead of a cubicle. And and I wanted to have a short commute. So I just came down to basics. And guess what I'm doing right now?
Same thing we all do.
Every single thing in that list.
And it's interesting when you start to do that list, you're like, oh my God, I'm an orange in a sea of apples. And how do you just, it's in that moment. And I was talking to Robert and Tamani about this earlier this week too. You really have to key in, like you did, with your values and your vision, and figure out what's really important, and stick to it like you did, and be okay with being an orange in a sea of apples. I own my orangeness now, like I said before, but when you really get this in the core of your being, it I don't know about you. Well, no, I know about you. It provides such clarity. It just it gets rid of all the noise, and you just kind of go, nope, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit. It's this.
Right.
And I know when I started this company, I saw a lot of kids, having gone back to school at 58, that were so talented. I mean, off the charts talented, but they didn't know that they were valued if they had value in the working world. And I would just be amazed. And I thought, this just has to stop.
Right.
We have to give these kids and young professionals, and I mean like up to the age of 30, the tools, because the world's changing very rapidly. And what our parents told us, oh, well, you should go do this or that, doesn't apply anymore. So they're under this pressure of trying to please their parents, figure out what they want to do. And, if they follow what their parents say and they find that they're miserable, then it leads to a whole nother set of circumstances that produce anxiety and depression and isolation. And then they have to fight back without having the skills to be able to figure it out. And I just thought, nope, I'm just gonna be crazy enough to address the elephant in the room. And you're addressing the other elephant, is that our bodies have time frames on them, and we have to be able to use them wisely. I'm an old jock. I knew going into it in my 20s that I was going to pay for it now. Well, shoulder, knee, or shoulder, back, and knee. I joined the trifecta club, but we have to use our bodies wisely, because there's only one. So
absolutely. And what was it? So what was really, really interesting or the aha moment was how much our emotions and our mind impacts the body. There's a huge connection, between the two. And there's a huge connection between chronic pain and stress and anxiety and all the trauma that we go through. There's a book that's called The Body Keeps the Score. Everything we go through, we might shove it into our bodies. I mean, even if we go out for a run, yes, there's some release, but we're ultimately, if we are not really fully processing the emotion that we've stored in the body, that will come back at some, it will come back at some point. And that is actually how I started my journey into wellness, was that I was encouraged by a healer in Berkeley. His name is Tom Hendrickson, and he put together a method that's called the Hendrickson method for massage therapy and manual therapy. And that was the only thing that actually worked for me in order to get out of chronic pain. And after I've written this list,
sorry.
What's that? Go ahead.
That commute from Cupertino to Berkeley, you know that there was value in that equation.
Yes, I had to make that trip. That method was the only thing that worked, and Tom and his team were pretty much the people that I needed, because they not only understand the body, they understand the connection between the emotions and the body. So there's a process called emotional release when you are doing massage therapy and when you're working manually with the body, that we haven't been educated on. And once you allow yourself to have that somatic release and that emotional release, that's when the real healing begins. You can work on the muscles, but if you are shutting down the emotions that are coming through when you're working with those muscles, then you're still not fully allowing yourself to get into the place of joy and happiness and light.
It's interesting because I remember talking to you while you were going through all of this, and we were talking about the subject of triggers and and how you can feel something in your body that literally is it's reacting to the trigger point in your mind, but it's coming out of your body and in really unusual places. And how did you work through those triggers?
Oh,
on the spot, maybe. I know it's a work in practice for me, but
so through prior healing modalities that I had explored, I was familiar with the somatic healing, where you're actually allowing whatever the body wants to do in a certain session, either meditation or therapy or body therapy. You let that out. It could be you want to cry, you want to shiver, you want to shake. It's just somatic response. So I'd already trained my body to do that, to let it go. But what was really important for me is to find the right team behind me to help me with that healing. And to find the right people who understood that connection between the emotions and the body, so that I would have a safe space for me to actually allow myself to work out on those triggers. So I already had the courage to work on the triggers. I needed support. I needed to find the right people to actually work and help me work through those. And luckily I did find that in Tom's team. And through that, I had an epiphany that apparently I had this gift of understanding that connection between the human body and the emotions. And I also had a really, somehow it came to me like an epiphany. The moment that I had this work done on me, I had a Trinity moment in the movie The Matrix, where she flies the B-12 helicopter, and all of a sudden it was just downloaded in my body, and I already knew how to actually work manually with the body to help the body get out of pain. It was absolutely a surreal, I would say, really surreal experience. And at the same time with that, Tom comes to me and he says, "Have you thought about changing career?" So I just told myself, I said, be careful what you ask for, because I'd already written the list. And so through that, I then decided that, okay, the universe is basically calling me. And I literally had to listen and I had to surrender. So I went back to Tom the next day and I said, all right, I'm ready. And what do I need to do? And he encouraged me, he said, well, you have to become a certified massage therapist. You have to go back to school. And at the same time, he said, you have to come and do my training. And that's what I did. I went and I enrolled in the National Holistic Institute. I am already a certified massage therapist, and I focused on only two things during this past year. It was focused on my own healing and focused on getting educated as much as possible about helping other people heal. And everything just came together very, very, very quickly. I started this in March last year, and by August, I had opened my office in Palo Alto to do body work and to help people with healing.
Oh my God, right in the heart of it. I'm laughing because
I don't lose any time, Janet. I don't lose any time.
I know you don't, but what I find so interesting is here we're offering, this reprieve in the heart of this high achieving ecosystem. And I live in the East Bay and you live down the peninsula, but I'm chuckling at the irony of that one. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just like perverse enough to see the irony of that. But I don't know. It's so ironic, all of this stuff. But when we follow what is true in our nature, and
yes.
It takes a while to get there.
Yes.
I know after I quit my job, I went down to Guatemala for a couple of weeks to help a Mayan-owned coffee cooperative through my church get up and running. And I was so inspired by that journey, because it's a third world country. There's nothing, they have so little, yet they're so full. And it was the complete antithesis of what I had been in. And yet it was the perfect place to regain a sense of purpose. And I think I shared this with you when I came back. I wrote this question: what do you want to do next? And honest to goodness, I don't think it was me just writing it down. There was, like you said, it was an epiphany moment. I felt like there was something else writing that with me, because I want to help people. And the minute I wrote that down, the rest became very, very clear.
Wow.
It was just details to be worked out. And I have felt like I have been on a mission ever since.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of things in my life. We've all made good salaries. We've done this, we've done that. But here I am in Act 3 of my career, and I feel more purpose-filled than I ever have, no matter what big deal I was selling. It's just different. And it just makes me feel whole as a human being, which I know it does for you as well. And, before we got on this call, you were reading a part of a poem to me, and I would love it if you could share that with everybody.
Sure. I think just the background on this, I never thought I would have this path.
Neither did I.
The journey of becoming a massage therapist is the most intimate journey one can go through. I went from a really high-paced environment with really intense, A-type personality people. I was one of them. I still think I am.
I'm working on plus.
And I went into a classroom where I was, with people who were doing, were waiters, were doing hourly jobs. They're waiters and Uber drivers and, massage therapists. They're getting their certifications. We have a cook who's, you know, looking to get into wellness, and to be sitting on the floor with, I would call, the common people in a good way, and then to you know, learn how to do massages on and touch human bodies, any type of human bodies. You have, I mean, literally different types of human bodies in that classroom. And then to just slow down my super competitive brain and attitude to like come down to the level of being one with everybody. That was the most humbling experience that I had to go through. And I thought I was an open person. And only when I sat in that classroom, I realized how much more work I had to do to be open and accepting and kind and non-judgmental of everybody around me. And I could see the struggles of everyone. And I felt so lucky to be in a position where I was to, you know, have the ability to fund myself and not to have to work while I was going to school, and to focus on my own health while everybody else was struggling, even financially. Just a very, very intense struggle. And that journey just completely just transformed me as a person.
But you know, the interesting thing in those humbling moments, because believe me, I had my own share of humbling moments. We realized that we're all much more alike than we are different. I mean, when you take away all of the masks and the mirrors and all the keeping up with the Joneses and stuff, we're all human.
Yeah. We're all human.
We all, excuse me, beating hard, and feeling that connection rather than sitting above it made all the difference to me.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll read you the poem that I promised.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
It's a poem by Rumi, and it's called A Voice Through the Door. Sometimes you hear a voice through the door calling you, as fish out of water hear the waves, or a hunting falcon hears the drums, come back, come back. This turning toward what you deeply love saves you. Read the book of your life, which has been given you. A voice comes to your soul saying, lift your foot. There you have it, Janet.
Okay, so I feel like we've just done therapy 101. What are some tools that you think you can pass on to some of the everyone? You know, we're in a time that we've never been through before. Maybe our parents, our grandparents did, maybe bordering on the Great Depression, but there's going to be a lot of adjustment going on in the next couple.
Absolutely.
And what can you offer to folks that might help them through?
There's a lot of advice out there in terms of how to handle some of this anxiety that we're going through. This is serious times that we're going through, and I'm going to share a couple of things that would be really important, probably, to the audience that would be looking at this recording. So the first thing that I experienced when I stopped, which we're all asked to do, it was actually a very intense 2 weeks that I called detoxing. Mm-hmm. And that thing is real. So yes. I would wake up with sweats. I would wake up with headaches. I was kind of off. And that is all as a result of the adrenaline kind of slowing down, the adrenaline production in the body slowing down. And it's literally like a detox of, you know, whatever drug that you've been doing. When you go through a detox process, you're going to have those symptoms. So if you're having those symptoms, please take care of yourself, because that is actually what is going through. And I actually would like to give some advice to leaders and managers of other people. This is actually the time for empathy and compassion. It's time for the leaders to actually rise and very seriously think about how they can create safe emotional spaces for themselves and for their teams. One of the most important things is if an employee comes to you and you feel the stress around the employee, don't say it will be okay. Because in this moment, that employee is going to feel as if you're actually shutting them down and you don't want to hear it. And I'm sure as managers, we're humans. We have our own anxieties, and we do. Sometimes we're like, I don't want to go there. But this is the time for a manager to rise and to embrace their own anxiety, to work their own anxiety, and then to be present for their employees and their teammates. And so when somebody comes to them or, needs some help, instead of saying it's going to be okay, just ask the question, what is that's worrying you the most at this moment? You're going to be surprised how much that question is going to help people feel better, lift the anxiety, and create that safe space for all the employees to actually feel comfortable in that environment. So the second advice for managers is what I mentioned it earlier is you're human. Own your anxiety and be vulnerable with your team. This is the time to be vulnerable, and this is the time to share the human part of you. I know that, and I've experienced it here in Silicon Valley, especially in the sales environments. Vulnerability is seen as a weakness, yes, unfortunately. Yes. And so you can be vulnerable and you can be assertive at the same time. So I would encourage managers to create those safe spaces for the employees by being vulnerable and assertive. It's, and so work with somebody, get some help, accept the vulnerability as a human being, and then bring that vulnerability and that permission to your team. Those are the two things that I put some thought into what managers can do. And for just every individual, what helped me go through my healing process is very much a big metaphor now happening with the world. The world is basically, Mother Earth is basically saying, stop, I'm hurting. Yeah. And we all have to listen. And the very first thing that I had to do after listening was to actually love myself.
That's a big one for a lot of people.
Yes.
Warts and
yes.
all. That's
yes.
But if we learn how to love each other or love ourselves for our as I heard this someplace, our perfect imperfections.
Yes.
That make us us.
Yes.
That's 90% of the journey.
Yes, and I have I've said this to many of my clients, and you'll be surprised. The answer has been, how do I do that?
No, that actually wouldn't surprise me. It's an elusive answer to a lot of people.
Yeah. And so I am going to leave, everybody here with a very simple exercise that I give to all my clients. It may sound a little bit funny, but it is the best exercise. And you're going to do this. You're going to go in front of a mirror, and you are going to have a safe space, or a space where nobody's hearing you. Go in front of a mirror, look straight into your eyes, and then you're going to tell yourself straight into your eyes, I love you. I forgive you. I accept you just as you are.
Folks, you better stand in line, because mental wellness I have a long waiting list.
And so I'm going to encourage everybody who listens to this, if they do the exercise, I'd love if they can put a heart in the comments underneath this video. And if they do this exercise and they get teary and they get emotional and they start crying, I would love if they put 2 hearts in the comments below.
Ledi. Oh man, you know, all the things you've been talking about values and vision and community, and man, you just brought it all home today. And I know whether people react to this right now or not, I know it's going to resonate with them. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sharing this with me. And with all of us. I mean, now people will know what I know about you, that you just, I told you folks, she walks on water.
I sink a lot of times, and then I try to swim.
Don't we all? I create my own ballast, but you know.
Yes, yeah.
I just want to say thank you. This was just an amazing conversation, and yeah, I'm just gonna do that.
Thank you so much, Janet. This is thank you for giving me this opportunity to just share a little bit of kindness and love with everybody. And I know this is really, really hard times. Kindness and love is what's going to get us through. And kindness and love, like I said, starts with taking care of ourselves. Once we start taking care of ourselves in the true meaning of taking care of ourselves, then we are going to be having enough love and compassion to take care of other people. And I do have hopes that the sun will rise again. I know that. I healed my body, and I know we are going to heal each other if we do the right things.
That the sun is out.
Yes, the sun is out.
I'm going to exercise 2 words, and that is thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
All right. You take care. Namaste.
You too.
You too, sweetheart. Bye-bye.
Bye.